All right, well, welcome back. This is part two. We're looking at the second industrial revolution and how it contributes to the world going mad, going to war. And so without further ado, let's jump right into it, okay? So we're looking at the World War I, and then we're going to step back in time. We're going to look at the crime scene and step back to historically, forensically put the evidence together and try to come up, like a detective would, to come up with what all happened and what were the motives and who did what, when, where. So we're looking at 1914 as the kickoff. Just as summer begins, we're looking at the kickoff for that. Let's look at some of the evidence. These are pictures from World War I. You have a tank that is running on tracks. It has an engine. It has cannons on the outer edges, things of that sort. You have the airplane. Everybody knows the Red Baron, right? Tales of the Red Baron. He was a real human being. Fought with the German Air Force, big hero for the Germans. But you have an airplane. Let's take a look at the airplane. Look at it, and what all is involved in the creation of this wonder, being able to fly artillery and guns and men up into the skies and fight in the skies. I mean, that had never been heard of, ever, ever, ever in all of history. You have down at the bottom, you have a picture of the gas warfare. The men wearing their gas masks so as not to choke or have nerve poisoning, things of that sort. These are all things that were regularly part of World War I, the fighting, the day-to-day combat. Well, how in the world do we get from a horse and a buggy and, finding machines that will go over and tear apart cotton so that you can get rid of all the seeds and stuff, to this? And we're talking about this in a matter of about 20 years. That's the second industrial revolution. If you look at what time frames we're dealing with, look at these. The little green one that kind of goes up the sharpest initially, that's Great Britain. That is United Kingdom. And of course, the first industrial revolution was led by Britain. And so you would expect that to rise rather quickly. But look from 1880 on. Look at the newcomers into the play. Pretty much everything else was flat up until about that time. Maybe 1860 for some, like the United States. But by 1880, the increase is exponential. It is going up like this. It is huge increases, and eventually, by the turn of the century, the United States is actually out-producing, manufacturing, out-innovating Britain. In fact, some of the up and rising ones that are going to be here are going to be like France and Japan and Germany. Germany, of course, is going to be a big one. These are all part of their industry. They created these particular things. So when you look at the first industrial revolution, what are we thinking of? What's in our head? Well, we think of the locomotion or the steam engine, where you get railroads and steamships and things like that. You think of textile mills and the being able to make fabrics and things of that sort from agricultural products, flax and cotton and things of that sort. Those are very common. But when you get to the second industrial revolution, there are some pretty significant advances that take place that are very unique to its time, to the last 20 years of the 1800s, to the first 20 years, 10 to 20 years of the 20th century. So one would be the combustion engine. We got the car from that one, plus the tank and things of that sort. They all required a combustion as something that is going to use an oil or some sort of fuel in order to produce work. chemistry, which then leads into physics developments in the late 1800s and early 1900s. Things like the first X-ray. That's the gentleman down there looking through the goggles, trying to take an X-ray of the man's hand. The Coca-Cola. And you think, well, wait a minute, Coca-Cola, how is that chemistry? That's not chemistry. Mr. Wilson, you're kind of going off the deep end there. I will get back to that, so hang on. I'm telling you, it really is. There's also the advancement of widespread generation and use of electricity. These big wheel turbine kind of things down in the bottom left-hand corner, right-hand corner, these are dynamos. They're huge electric generators, and they are now able to generate hundreds of thousands of watts of electricity to do anything, light bulbs, TVs, whatever. It's not TVs yet, but just light up the entire cities, huge, massive amounts of electricity. There's also the advancement of pharmaceuticals, which goes a little bit with the chemistry as well. So chemistry leads off to physics, like X-rays, and also to pharmaceuticals, like Bayer aspirin. These are now bringing about cures, readily available cures to common ailments that kind of debilitated people in traditional history. Quinine for malaria was able to be used. That was gave people the ability to go deeper into like Africa and places like that. There's also civil engineering. Civil engineering, the idea of building bridges. This is the Brooklyn Bridge in New York City. Other ones that would come to mind would be like the Golden Gate Bridge, things of that sort. Not only in the United States, but in many, many countries around the world. Civil engineering, as people are moving away from the farm into the cities, and the machines are building new machines that are building new grand factories and production centers. Cities need the help. They need this kind of engineering. And so civil engineering sees this huge jump during this time. Sewage. How do you get rid of sewage? You could move in the 1800s, you move to Chicago, you were likely to die. There was so much disease and nastiness that was going through these tight fitted, tight living spaces kind of places with no sanitary water. There's another one. How do you sanitize water? Purify water for city use, municipal use. So all this sort of engineering came up. Development of powerful explosives. We ended up with this fine young man. His name is Alfred Nobel. He developed dynamite, but he was so personally weighed and felt guilty for creating something that could be so destructive that he decided he wanted to give some of his wealth back in a better way, so he created the Nobel Prizes. And so that's where we get the Nobel Prizes from. But again, the idea of expanding explosives was a really big one during this time as well. Artillery shells, huge shells, those big cannon guns, those are all part of it. So what was another sort of characteristic, shall we say, of the Second Industrial Revolution? Well, it was the integration of advancements. So go back to that Coca-Cola. You know, here we have Coca-Cola. It's very prim and proper. Oh, nice, right? Well, think about it for a moment. What in the world is Coca-Cola, and what would it take to get it to you? If you wanted a Coca-Cola from scratch, what would you have to do? Well, you need refrigeration. That's one. You need refrigeration because carbon dioxide does not stay in the water very long when it's warm. When it gets warm, it leaves. Well, wait a minute. Carbon dioxide in water, how did they figure out how to do that? That was part of the chemistry. They figured out how to isolate carbon dioxide all by itself, put it into a metal high-pressure tank, which had to be something new. That was part of the metal or the manufacturing part of this advancement. And then you had to put the CO2 into that metal container, seal it, and then you would tap that and pump or pressurized regular water or flavored water and make it carbonated water. Well, all of that was done by your pharmacist. He was the drugstore fountain guy. And he had his degrees, his studies in chemistry, and that's why he was the guy that could do this. He had the technology and the know-how in order to do all of this chemistry, all of this manufactured kind of work, to put it all together to make it happen. Didn't know that, did you? You just thought you go down to the store, 7-Eleven, and pop a bottle, and you're ready to go, right? No. Let's go back to the automobile. Look at the picture here. Look at all of the different parts and pieces that need to be put and brought together in order to make this a real item. You got rubber on the tires. You have steel that has to be stamped or die tapped. It has to have glass for the lenses. It has leather. It has all sorts of different mechanisms, not to mention the combustion engine, the transmission to take the engine and transfer that energy into spinning the wheels. So there's a lot that's going on just to create this new machine. An old machine, combined with other machines, can produce even better machines. That's the second revolution, industrial revolution. As I said before, there's an explosion of city development during this time as well. This is, I think it's called Wolf Point in Chicago. The one on the left-hand side was about 1880 or so, and the one on the right is 1920. Huge difference. Take a look. So here's four main cities. In 1830, New York City has 200,000 people in it. By 1920, just 100 years later, not even 100 years later, 90 years later, it's at 5.6 million. Chicago in 1830 has 100. It's a little wagon. It's a little one buggy town. But by 1870, there's 400,000. That's about the size of Sacramento. By 1920, you're over 2 million. Same thing with Philadelphia, San Francisco. 1830, San Francisco wasn't even a thing. It was just a place you dropped off people in order to get them to the gold fields. By 1870, there's 200,000 people living there. By 1920, it's not a huge jump, but it's more than doubled. And that's on the very extreme end of the United States at that time. Remember, that western coast was still being developed at that time. The idea of how do you move people about in these big cities? Well, you use trolleys. Well, that was underground or overhead electrical cables, and trolleys were like, they were on rails, so you had to lay the rails. You put the trolley on top, the trolley picks up the electricity, moves a motor, and gets the trolley to move, much like like a train. But look at just some of the intricacies. The one on the left is from London. The one on the right is New York City. Brooklyn Bridge is in the background. But look at how intricate and how much work had to go into putting something like that together. You got bridge and trolley and traffic and everything else going on that thing. That's a lot of engineering. And that's just in a matter of just 40 years or so. The other one was the development of major corporations, such as the Standard Oil Company. So this was another one. Prior to this time, coal was the main issue, the main fuel. People wanted, is the new fuel. You could burn wood, forests ran out, so they went to coal. Coal became a thing and was a motivator for the first industrial revolution, but by the time we get to the second industrial revolution, now we're tapping not for coal, we're tapping for oil. And oil becomes a major fuel for automobiles, for all sorts of different things, including airplanes. So this is the Standard Oil Company. It's in Ohio. It's right off the Ohio River in 1880. That's just the beginning of it. It becomes a monster octopus kind of company within just a matter of a couple decades from then. So let's go back to our situation again. Let's go back to, here's all this stuff coming down, all these newfangled ideas. We have cars, we have planes, we have tanks, we have new artillery, we have new explosives, we have new medicines, we have new chemistry, we have new cities that are booming and bustling. We have engineers that are doing things that have never been done supposedly before. What is that doing for all these different participants in World War I? How is that triggering or influencing the things that they consider as now problems or opportunities? If everybody is still trying to be top dog, going back to that nationalism, going back to that new imperialism, they want a piece of the pie, then how are all these new technologies, particularly in that they are coming up in very specific countries now, not just the United Kingdom, what would be some of the things that would motivate me as a German, the German country, to move out and do something like the World War I? Or why would I want, what about Russia? What does Russia want? What does it see as problems that need to be solved, need to be either put down or gone around? What opportunities do they have? The United States. Why would the United States? They're on the other side of the world. Why would they jump in on it? What's their gain into it? What about Great Britain, et cetera, et cetera? You see what I mean? There's a lot that's happening, a lot that's moving. And in this time frame, this cycle, this wheel through situation, problem, opportunity, pick a choice, new opportunity or new situation, that creates new problems, new opportunity, new choices, new situation, et cetera, et cetera. That cycle is now at a blinding speed. It is zooming. It is like, whizz, and it's not slowing down. It's speeding up. And therefore, it makes sense that the world is going to have to come to some clash at some point, and that's World War I. So this is kind of what's going on. As I said, there's new players on the field too. The United States, Germany, and Japan are now the top leaders in this industrial acceleration. And Britain is not the big dog anymore. I mean, they still have a horse in the race kind of thing, but they're not the ones that are coming up. Germany is now being the mindset, the science capital of the world. Their universities are what's coming up with all of this new science and new developments in technology. They're just going absolutely bananas. Japan is modernizing, and they're trying to borrow and learn from other people. And so the world is getting ready to have this gigantic eruption, and that's what's going to come next. Is we got one other thing that we got to look at, and that's the rise of modern capitalism, and we'll do that next week. And then we're going to kind of pour it all into one, and we're going to look at alliances and treaties, and oh my, what a nightmare all of that's going to be. And that will be in our next couple weeks coming. But next week, modern capitalism. So try to put it all together, see what you can do, and we'll see you next week.